Welcome back, students, in the part 2 of our discussion regarding Ismat Chughta's short story, Lihaaf or the Quid. Now, in this story, we have seen that Begum Jan, who is the female protagonist, develops an intimate relationship with her servant, a girl named Rabbu. And this relationship is not only intimate in terms of physical, in terms of body, but it is also sexual. Right? And also, on the tertiary level, it is of psychological. Because a woman who can never express her sexual yearnings got an opportunity, a chance to satisfy her physical cravings. Now, the physical description that we get regarding Rabbu is very interesting. Rabbu is depicted in details, but a completely opposite to Begum Jan. I'm quoting from the story. She was dark as Begum Jan was fair. So Rabbu, the object of Begum Jan's attraction, was dark compared to Begum Jan, who is white or fair in complexion. As purple as the other one was white, she seemed to glow like heated iron, a metaphor, an allusion to heated iron. Rabbu is like a heated iron. Doesn't it seem that it is a masculine imagery, a masculine allusion, the heated iron? Her face was scarred by smallpox. She was short, stocky, and had a small paunch. Her hands were small but agile. Her large, swollen lips were always wet. So the physical description that we get of Rabbu quite matches with a man, right? Not a beautiful woman, not a beautiful female individual. So as if Rabbu, the female servant of Begum Jan, is taking that absent space, is taking the void, is filling the void. It is like a filler object, a filler character who fulfills the physical cravings of Begum Jan, simultaneously filling up the void created in Begum Jan's mind. Now, let us come to the most significant, crucial aspects, the themes that we find in the story. Number one is marriage. The institution of marriage is heavily criticized by the author. So, Ismat Chughtai is perceiving the institution of marriage from a female point of view, from a feminist point of view. Marriage to her, or as we find in the story, is not a negotiation between a male individual and a female individual. But marriage necessarily demands the sacrifice, the submission, the surrender of a female individual. It is a treaty, a sign, a pact made between a male and a female, where the female individual surrenders everything that she possesses. This is marriage according to Ismat Chughtai. Because Begum Jan was installed in the household of Nawab. Nawab, her husband, did not satisfy her mentally or physically. So there was a vacant, a void created in her psyche, which was never fulfilled. That is why she stooped down to perform her hidden sexual orientation, which is homosexuality, lesbian, right? So Begum Jan here becomes a transgressive woman who explores the lens of her sexuality from within the parameters of patriarchy without giving up a married life. Now this is the aspect, this is where the female individual needs to cross the domestic threshold, needs to break the barriers imposed by patriarchy. She needs to transgress, to move beyond the restriction of her social and sexual life. Then here it links to this second issue of the story regarding the oppression. Now oppression occurs at three dimensions. First of all, we have a social oppression, because Begum Jan was installed, she was married, and it is implicated that possibly by force. So this is social oppression. Number 2, sexual oppression, right? Because not only Nawab failed to satisfy the desires of his wife, but the society did not permit her to openly profess, to openly explore her sexual yearning. So this is sexual oppression. And third, we have gender oppression, or the racial oppression, we can term. So this oppression is a central theme of the story. The author talks about the evils of oppression of women as well as the desire in general. As I've told, both Begum Jan and Nawab are victims of oppression in their own ways. Nawab has had to marry, and perhaps he was forced to marry, he was compelled to marry Begum Jan despite his othered, his homosexual orientation, because perhaps of the social dogmas prevalent in the contemporary society. These dogmas were thrust upon him, right? So Nawab was also oppressed by the social norms and unable to reveal his sexual identity. And as a result of this failed marriage, Begum Jan undergoes double oppression. She herself is oppressed because of her gender and her sexuality, and oppressed due to the unidimensional idea of what is accepted, what is regarded as normal, as natural in society. So, social oppression, sexual oppression, and gender oppression. Now, the third important issue regarding the story would be, is, of course, the female desire and sexuality. So, this is not another theme, but it is applicable to most of Ismat Chughta's works. A potent idea which is propagated in the story is the idea of subjugation of female sexuality and desire. You see, Begum Jan had no choice but to marry Nawab, and she has been given no space. She was denied any legitimate legal space to explore her identity and sexuality. This is perhaps the sole reason that an expression of sexuality manifests itself in a very unconventional way, with her having a relationship with a servant. So, a boss cannot get involved in a liaison with his or her servant. So, Begum Jan in this case not only transgresses her sexual norms, I mean the prevalent norms of heteronormativity, but she also transgresses, she also moves beyond the social restrictions imposed on her, and she also challenges the conventional social and gendered structure. Right? Now, the climax of the story, which involves the quilt. So, quilt here is a symbol. It is a symbol, it is also a major symbol of the story, and is opened in several levels, in multifarious layers. And each level or layer is given a unique meaning. The first and the most obvious symbolic significance of the quilt is used by Begum Jan and Rabbu to cover their joys at night. So it is an object to hide something which the society will not accept, right? Which the society will term as unnatural, unconventional, therefore illegitimate. So the affair, it might be the psychological affair, it might be the sexual or bodily affair, bodily intercourse. So this act of physical intimacy between Begum Jan and Rabbu is illegitimate, illegal, illicit, according to the heteronormativity or heterosexual idea of society at large. So, it is the quilt which is the symbol of the things that are hidden. The second and the tertiary metaphorical meaning of the quilt would be, as Begum Jan has represented her as being under the quilt herself, and it is one that her husband uses for hiding his own homosexual orientation. Because he married a woman so to close the eyes of the society. Besides, he was considered a person of high morals. But we find in the story that the reality was far different what it actually appeared before. So quilt is a metaphor here. Quilt is a symbol in the story. And in your semester exam, just focus on this object, the quilt. And also a question may come regarding the title of the story. If such question comes in your exam, you have to write all these issues. Now, there is another allegory, which is the act of messaging. Rabbu was hired, was a servant of Begum Jan, and what she does is, what she used to do is, she used to message Begum Jan. Now, through the entire story, very specific details of messaging processes are given by the narrator. I mean, by the author. The motive of touching another person and at the same time giving her physical satisfaction is an allegory of sex itself, the sexual act of copulation or intercourse. So through the message, the writer provides an image of sexual relationship. So the message given by Rabbu to Begum Jan indicates bodily touch, touching the other's body. So this is an indication of the sexual behavior, the unnatural, the unconventional sexual behavior existing between Begum Jan and Rabbu. So the first symbol was the quilt, the second is the act of messaging. Right? So to sum up my lecture, to conclude, one should minutely focus, one should concentrate on this story and how Ismat Chugtai is challenging the hegemonic pattern regarding male sexuality and feminine exploration of heterosexual behavior, the norms of the gender norms of heteronormativity, the marginalization of this LGBT or the queer community as we call it today, and how she is providing a scathing critique against the institution of marriage, and how she is criticizing this aspect where a female individual is subjugated, she has to surrender, she has to be submissive, and she has to conceal her female identity, her sexual behavior. And also the readers, the eyes of the readers were opened to the oppression taking place at three levels: social oppression, sexual oppression, and gendered oppression. Now, sitting in this 21st century, as you are all college students, you are going to be the future citizen of our country. So I think you need to know few points, few facts, key facts of this heteronormativity or this heterosexual, the conflict between heterosexuality and homosexuality, the acts existing in our present state. See, today, still in the Indian state, the Supreme Court has not fully legalized the practice of homosexuality, right? However, on 6th September in the year 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the part of the Article 377. Article 377, previously it used to denote that any unnatural sexual behavior would be criminalized and it is subjected to penal action. And it was of course a British era provision which is to criminalize consensual homosexual activities. So the Apex Court upheld that other aspects of section 377 criminalizing unnatural sex with minors and animals will remain at force. However, the Supreme Court stated in this revision of the Act of section 377 that homosexual behavior is no longer a criminal act. However, homophobia is still prevalent in India as well as the other parts of the world. So, public discussion of homosexuality in India has been inhibited by the fact that sexuality in any form is rarely discussed openly. So, sex is still a taboo in this 21st century. Now, if we look at our own culture, if we look at the sculpture of Khajuraho temple, we can see that there are acts of gay men performing sexual acts. We have in our Hindu mythology the figure of Ardhanarishwar, where the male and the female, where the man and the woman are coalesced. Right? In Mahabharata, we have the figure of Shikhandi, who was a transgender, and taking her help or his help, I don't know, taking the help of Shikhandi, Arjun finally managed to kill Bhishma. In Rig Veda, we have the saying Vikriti evam prakriti, which means that which is unnatural in this world is also natural. And some scholars of believe and they also recognize homosexual dimensions of human life like all forms of universal diversity. We have the ancient text of Kama Sutra written by Vatsayan, and in that text, Kama Sutra, Vatsayan dedicates a complete chapter on erotic homosexual behavior. So, while our culture, while our past has legalized, had seen this homosexual act as normal, as natural, so why do we need to marginalize, why do we need to suppress a certain section of our society? Now, Ismat Chugtai, many of her writings regarding Angare and Lihaaf were banned in South Asia because of the reformist and feminist stance present in these texts. She openly professed that her view regarding the niqab or the burqa, the veil owned by women in Muslim societies, she said that this practice must be discouraged for Muslim women because it is oppressive and futile. Right, and this sparked a huge controversy regarding among Islamic scholars, both traditional and liberal. And you need to know that this story, Lihaaf or the quilt, was also banned in British India. She was summoned to court and she had to justify her stance that why she had written such a story, because sitting at 1940s in pre-independent India, talking or discourse regarding homosexuality was not very welcomed by the society. Right? So go through these points, prepare your answers, and you are most welcome to get it checked by me. Thank you.